panel hearing today. The other panel members to hear the appeal today are my state board colleagues, Ms. Jill Kamnitz and Mr. Reginald Keenan. All three of us have been duly appointed by the chairman of the State Board of Education to this panel to hear this matter on behalf of the State Board of Education and to make a recommendation to that body. I want to welcome those listening to the proceedings. Panel members, you're reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of the Charter Review Board. I want to ask each of the board members if they are aware of any conflict that might disqualify them from hearing this matter or aware of anything else that would keep them from fairly and impartially deciding this appeal. Ms. Kamnitz, do you have any conflicts of interest in this matter?
No.
Can you be impartial in this matter, Ms. Kamnitz?
Yes, I can.
Mr. Keenan, do you have any conflicts of interest in this matter?
No.
Can you be fair and impartial in this matter?
Yes.
And I do not have any conflicts of interest or state for the record that I can be impartial and fair in this matter. Next, I would like to take a few minutes to share the procedure for the hearing today. Each side will be given up to 30 minutes to present its case and may reserve up to 5 minutes of that time for rebuttal following the main presentation. The panel members may ask questions of the parties either during or after the presentations. At the conclusion of the presentations, the panel will deliberate and vote on a recommended decision to present it to the full State Board of Education at its December 7th, 2023 meeting. At its December 7 meeting, the State Board of Education will make a final decision on this matter. So at this time, I would ask those present to introduce themselves. And I'll start with Allison Schaefer. Allison, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm General Counsel to the State Board of Education. I'm representing the panel at this point.
Okay.
And I'm keeping time, so if I come back on, it's to let you know about
Okay.
that.
Ms. Martin, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, sir. My name is Lou Martin, and I work with the State Board of Education.
Anyone else want to introduce themselves?
This is Ashley Vaquero. I will be presenting on the Schools Review Board.
Good morning, Ashley. Good morning, Ashley.
I'm the Office of Charter Schools.
Thank you. Welcome.
I'm Dr. Jim Poole, pediatrician, assisting in this matter with Heritage.
Thank you, Dr. Poole, for joining us.
I am Dr. Akashi Bazemore, and I am the board chair for Heritage Collegiate Leadership Academy. And I also have with me Mrs. Mildred Bazemore, our board advisor.
Thank you. Nice to meet both of you.
Thank
Welcome. Anyone else want to introduce themselves? If not, we will proceed. So I'd ask Ashley to make its presentation, please. And Allison will keep the time for us today. And if we have any issues, then I will call on her to reach out to us about timing issues.
Okay. All right, Allison, are we good to go? I guess you're good for me to go. So my name is Ashley Vaquero, the Director of the Office of Charter Schools, and I'm presenting today on behalf of the Charter Schools Review Board. I do want to preface by stating that it's the Charter Schools Review Board and the Office of Charter Schools understanding that pursuant to one, I'm getting feedback. Maybe if people that are not speaking could mute, that might help. But it's our understanding that pursuant to 115C, that's 218.9 and the Charter School Policy 023, that an applicant for a charter school, in this case, Heritage Collegiate Leadership Academy, Wake, may appeal to the state board for a final decision by the Schools Review Board denying its charter application. As such, I'm presenting facts related to the application for a charter school, in this case, HCLA Wake, and the subsequent denial of the application by the board. As no current OCS staff member was involved in the assumption or subsequent OHA proceeding, it cannot speak to those matters. Further, the Charter Schools Review Board did not exist in its current form during that time, and the vast majority, if not all, of the current board members were not on the board as it existed in 2018. My presentation of facts will therefore be focused exclusively on the application and the denial of such application for a Wake County charter school, and only discuss the previous Berkeley County school as it relates to the Wake County application.
Before Ashley starts,
There's a lot of backfeeding.
it's really, yeah, it's very difficult. We're not really getting a clear hearing of what she's saying.
And we are unable to hear as well.
Can you give us just a few moments?
Does everyone have their items muted so that Ms. McCarron can, it might be a little clearer if everyone is unmuted.
Okay, everyone's muted.
All right, let's try it now. Is that better?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so we're going to start with talking about the current application that is up for appeal, the Heritage Collegiate Leadership Academy, Wake County. During the 2022 charter application cycle, the board for HCLA Wake submitted an application to open a charter school with a projected opening date of fall 2024. The application was reviewed pursuant to the Office of Charter School Application Procedures and was forwarded to an interview status. At its November 8th, 2022 regular meeting, the Charter Schools Advisory Board heard an introduction to the application from OCF staff, as do all applications, before proceeding within 1 hour allotted interview time. During the November 8th interview, the HCLA board answered numerous questions posed by CSAB. Mr. Bruce Friend, the CSAB board member at the time, asked what has changed since the previous board and the board chair, Dr. Kashi Bazemore, operated a school that was closed in 2018. Dr. Bazemore stated that there were mistakes that were made, but she learned from those mistakes, and she stated they were stronger and more clear than ever. CSAB members asked questions regarding the Wake County application, ranging from curriculum to board membership to facility, all which are reflected in the meeting minutes and audio which have been provided to this panel. Dr. John Eldridge, a CSAB member, reported the statement from Wake County that the former school was closed due to mismanagement and student achievement issues. Dr. Bazemore stated they had learned how to be in connection with the DPS and that they have a positive working relationship with the Office of Charter Schools now. She stated that when she hears Wake County talking about performance, that is the pot calling the kettle black. She spoke about the number of Wake County schools with D's and F's. She spoke about the shifting and movement of students and miserable teachers, and she stated she knows that she must work well with the state, and that is the number one change she has made. During the interview, concerns and questions were raised regarding follow-through and details, student interests, budget, alternative education, innovation, teacher salaries, bylaws, and facility. Mr. Friend moved to forward the application to a second interview. Dr. Terry Stoops seconded the motion and it passed unanimously. That was the first interview that took place in November 2022 with the Charter Schools Advisory Board, as it was formally. A second round interview with CSAB took December 5th, 2022. The HCLA board fielded questions from CSAB, including whether any lawsuits or litigation were pending based on the former Berkeley County School. Dr. Bazemore indicated that all had been concluded. Dr. Eldridge indicated he was not involved with CSAB closed, so he wanted to ensure that CSAB would be confident in its recommendation. CSAB members debated whether Dr. Bazemore, who is the leader and former leader of the closed Berkeley School, was prepared to operate another school. At the conclusion of deliberations, Cheryl Turner motioned to recommend the application for approval to the State Board of Education, and Dave Machado seconded that motion. Eric Sanchez stated he would support the motion, but with great reluctance. He stated he doesn't want to make the mistake of not being for needed. But if it comes with any issues, there will not be any latitude given.
So, Ashley, this is John, Chair Blackburn. We really are having a hard time with the audio, so I think we probably need to pause this for a little while until we get some help.
Okay.
Can we have about 5 minutes? I've texted IT to come back.
We sure can. Thank you, Lou. And this will not be held against your time, Ms. Picaro. So we'll take a 5-minute pause.
Mr. Blackburn, it might be if Ms. McCarroll were to turn off her audio or video, that might help with her. You want to try that, Ms. McCarroll?
You want to try again, Ashley?
Okay, now it's, I'm still getting the background, I think.
Yeah, same here. We'll give IT a minute. IT's on the way. Everybody hold on.
Ashley, I have IT here in the room now, so if you could speak so he could figure, so we can up your mic.
Sure. Let's see.
I was gonna say, just say several things so he'll.
Okay, yeah, we were reviewing the November 22nd interview with HCLA. The first interview was CSAB. They were forwarded to a second round on December 5th, 2022. And that vote was taken and passed unanimously.
Does that sound better, everyone?
I still hear it's like a background kind of I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, I'm getting it too.
Yeah, same here.
Kind
Still.
of like a she sound.
I'm gonna mute everyone.
Okay, that's okay. So a vote was taken at the December 5th, 2022 CSAB meeting and passed unanimously. On January 5th, 2023, the recommendations for all of the charter applications of 2022 were presented for discussion to the state board at its regular meeting. And on February 1st, 2023, the recommendations were presented for action to state board at its regular meeting. The state board voted to not approve the HCLA application, which then required that the Charter School Advisory Board take up the application on reconsideration.
Ashley, you're fading in and out. Are you speaking directly into your mic?
Yes. I'm in the building. I don't know if IT wants to come to, I'm definitely using the same kind of system I've used for all my meetings. Don't. Let's see. How about now? Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, it's still
It says
making
that
the,
you fade in and out every now and then.
okay.
Or the mic's up. Did you adjust it or not? Mr. Blackburn, IT says we're ready.
Okay, proceed, Ashley.
Okay. Okay, so we were at the February 1st, 2023 State Board meeting. At that meeting, the HCLA Wake County application was taken up for action, and it was denied. On the February 6th, 2023 CSAB meeting, the Charter Schools Advisory Board deferred HCLA Wake application on reconsideration. Dr. Bazemore was given the opportunity to address the Charter Schools Advisory Board, and Bruce Friend moved to recommend approval of the application on consideration. Bartley Danielson seconded the motion, and it passed 6-1. God be opposed. So the original application went to the Charter Schools Advisory Board for 2 interviews. Then it went to the state board. It was denied by the state board. Sent it back to the Charter Schools Advisory Board for reconsideration. They again approved it. Can you guys hear me okay? I can't tell.
It's still happening.
Yeah, I'm still getting background too. Let me, let's see, maybe should I maybe try logging off and logging back in and see if that helps? Okay, let me try that. I'll be right back. All right, let's try this again. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Sounds a little better, maybe.
Maybe, okay.
If it doesn't work this time, Ashley, we can also try having you dial in.
Okay.
Then you can.
Okay, so we were at, okay, the March 2nd, 2023 regular meeting of the state board. This is when the state board heard the Heritage Collegiate Leadership Academy application again after being sent back to reconsideration to this Charter Schools Advisory Board. Ms. Amy White noted a thorough discussion on this item the previous day, March 1st, and read a statement for the record. Part of that statement is presented in the minutes that have been provided, but part of what she referenced, and I believe was taken into account by the Charter Schools Review Board, was her statement that following a long history of warnings for poor performance, qualifying the school as continually underperforming, failure to comply with fiscal requirements, including failure to file required reports and audit, failure to have the required percentage of certified teachers by staff, failure to have the required.
I'm sorry, I am having a problem hearing, and in order to respond to these things, I really need to hear what Ashley is saying.
I agree. It's still not clear as it should be.
I agree too.
Lou, does someone in tech want to come down to my office? This is the same system I use every time, so I'm not really sure what's happening.
Is that what, is that what you saw on the phone, Ashley, and does not have your video?
I don't have my video on. It's hard to hear you too, Allison, actually.
Yeah, okay.
Ashley, would you like to come up to the boardroom?
Okay, sure. Yeah, let me try that.
Thank you.
Thank everyone for your patience.
No problem, thank you.
I think when we start back, this is Chair Blackburn, I think when we start back, in fairness to Dr. Bazemore and her group, we might need to get Ashley to represent, because a lot of this has been garbled and we want to make sure that this is done with the greatest of integrity.
Mr. Blackburn, we greatly appreciate that because I'm taking notes, and if you could see my notes, you would be able to determine that there are times that I'm not able to hear. So I definitely agree with you, and thank you.
Would you like me to start the clock again?
Please, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Mr. Blackman, I think we are ready to begin again at 10:28.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. So we shall proceed and call on you again, Ms. Becerra.
Okay, and would you like me to start from the beginning?
Please.
Okay, let's do that. Okay, so pursuant to General Statute 115C-218.9 and Charter School Policy 023, an applicant for a charter school, in this case HCLA Wake, may appeal to the Based on materials submitted by the HCLA Wake Board, I believe is represented by Dr. Bazemore today. There are a host of other issues relating to a Bertie County school, which was assumed in 2018, which will probably be addressed. As no current OCS staff member was involved in that assumption or subsequent OHA proceedings, I cannot speak to those matters. Further, the Charter Schools Review Board did not exist in its current form during that time, and the vast majority, if not all, of the current members were not on the board as it existed in 2018. My presentations of facts will therefore be focused exclusively on the application and the denial of such an application for a Wake County charter school, HCLA Wake, and only discuss the previous Bertie County school as it relates to the denial of the current Wake County application. The HCLA Wake County application submitted by the board of directors for that school, the chair, Dr. Kashi Bazemore, was submitted during the 2022 charter application cycle. It was submitted with a proposed opening date of fall 2024. As all applications, it was reviewed pursuant to the Office of Charter Schools application procedures and forwarded to interview status. The first interview took place on November 8th, 2022 with the Charter Schools Advisory Board, and the board heard an introduction from the Office of Charter Schools staff, as do all applications, and then proceeded to its 1-hour interview time. During the November 8th interview, the HCLA board answered numerous questions posed by the Charter Schools Advisory Board. Mr. Bruce Friend, a CSAB board member at the time, asked what was changed since the previous school, which was headed by the board chair, Dr. Kashi Bazemore, was closed, like what had changed since that school was closed in 2018. Dr. Bazemore stated that there were mistakes made, but they learned from those mistakes and they stated they were stronger and more clear than ever. CSAB members asked questions regarding the Wake County application, ranging from curriculum to facility to board membership, to name a few, and which are reflected in the meeting minutes and the audio which have been provided to this board. Dr. John Eldridge, a CSAB member, asked the board to address the statement, the impact statement, which was submitted from Wake County, that the former school headed by Dr. Bazemore was closed due to mismanagement and student achievement. Dr. Bazemore stated they learned how to be in connection with the DPI staff and they had a positive working relationship with the Office of Charter Schools. She stated that when she hears Wake County talking about performance, that is the pot calling the kettle black. And she spoke about the number of Wake County schools with D's and F's and the shifting and movement of schools and miserable teachers within the county. She stated she knows that she must work well with the state and that is the #1 change. During the interview, concerns and questions were raised regarding follow-through and details, student interest, budget, alternative education, innovation, teacher salaries, bylaws, and facility. At the conclusion of the first interview, Mr. Friend moved to forward the application to a second interview, and Dr. Terry Stoops seconded the motion and it passed unanimously. A second round interview with the CSAB took place on December 5th, 2022. The HCLA board fielded questions from CSAB, including whether there were any pending lawsuits regarding the former school, and Dr. Bazemore indicated that all had been concluded. Dr. Eldridge indicated he was not involved with CSAB when the former school was closed, and so he wanted to ensure they were confident in its recommendation. CSAB members debated whether Dr. Bazemore, who was the proposed school leader and former leader of the closed Bertie school, was prepared to operate another school. At the conclusion of deliberations, Cheryl Turner motioned to recommend the application for approval by the state board, and Dave Machado seconded that motion. Eric Sanchez stated that he would support the motion with great reluctance, and he stated he doesn't want to make the mistake of not opening a school for kids who need it, but if it comes back with any issues, there will not be any latitude given. A vote was taken and passed unanimously. At that point, after the CSAB conducts its interviews, all applications move, or previously moved, to the state board for recommendation and review. So on January 5th, 2023, the recommendations for all the charter school applications of the 2022 cycle were presented to the state board for discussion. On February 1st, 2023, the following months, the recommendations were presented for action to the state board. State board voted not to approve the Wake County application, HCLA Wake, which then required that the CSAB take up the application on reconsideration. So the Wake County application went from state board back to CSAB. On February 6th, 2023, at its regular meeting, CSAB heard the HCLA Wake application on reconsideration. Dr. Bazemore was given the opportunity to address the CSAB. Bruce Friend moved to recommend approval of the application on Bartley Danielson seconded the motion, and it passed 6-1 with Todd Godby opposed. At the March 2nd, 2023 regular meeting of the State Board voted again on the HCLA application. Ms. Amy White noted a thorough discussion on this item the previous day and read a statement for the record. Ms. White was a State Board member at the time, and part of what she read for the record and into the minutes was that following a long history at the previous school headed by Dr. Bazemore, including warnings for poor student performance, qualifying the school as continually low performing, failure to comply with fiscal requirements, including failure to file required reports and audits, failure to have the required percentage of certified teachers, failure to have the required number of members for the governing nonprofit board, non-compliance with federal exceptional children's service and documentation requirements, and other violations of state, federal laws, and or its charter. The CSEP recommended in 2017 to revoke the former school's charter. She stated that it would feel irresponsible if there was a vote to grant this organization another charter given the past failures of the Bertie County School. The full minutes and the full statement that Ms. White read can be found in the March 2nd State Board minutes. The application was denied. OCS notified the HCLA Board of the State Board's denial of March 2nd and informed the opportunity to submit an application during subsequent application rounds. However, House Bill 618 became law on August 16, 2023. This permitted any applicant or charter school that had an application, charter amendment, renewal, or termination submitted on or after July 1st, 2022 that the North Carolina Charter Schools Advisory Board recommended be denied, or that the State Board be denied, could be presented for reconsideration by the new Charter Schools Review Board. HCLA Wake notified OCS of its intent to apply for reconsideration to the Charter Schools Review Board. The request for reconsideration was heard at the October 18th, 2023 Charter Schools Review Board meeting. The HCLA Wake County Board was given the opportunity to present before the Charter Schools Review Board and answer any questions posed by the Charter School Review Board members. Charter Schools Review Board members asked a number of questions reflected in the minutes, including why the HCLA Wake County Board believes the State Board denied the application. Dr. Bazemore indicated she believes the State Board did not have all the information and that they were operating on inaccurate information. Dr. Danielson commented that he was not aware that the State Board had engaged in a settlement previously, and that if he had known that, he would have liked to have gotten more information the first time that was presented to the Charter Schools Advisory Board. Mr. Alex Granados said that as a reporter, he remembers multiple times being insufficient, and that the concern among the school being insufficient, and that the concern among State Board members was that they were not getting accurate information from the school. Charter Schools Review Board members deliberated on the reconsideration reflected in the minutes and raised several concerns following the State Board discussion on the application that took place March 1st and March 2nd of 2023. Dr. Danielson motioned not to approve the HCLA Wake application on reconsideration. Mr. Godby seconded that motion, and the motion passed unanimously. And the Wake County Board, Dr. Kashi Bazemore has appealed that decision, which we are hearing today. And that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Piquero. Do my fellow board members, Ms. Kamnitz or Mr. Keenan, do you have any questions of Ms. Piquero?
I do not. That was a very clear, she gave us a very clear understanding of the process that has brought us to this point.
Thank you, Ms. Kamnitz. Mr. Keenan, do you have any questions? All right, hearing none, we'll move. We will now move to ask Dr. Bazemore to make her presentation for Heritage Collegiate.
Okay, hello again. My name is Dr. Kashi Bazemore, and I am the board chair for Heritage Collegiate Wake. And we are here today because of our sincere concern about whether or not the application before you that was submitted with a $1,000 application fee, after inquiring about whether or not we could apply and whether our application would be fairly considered. Once we determined that that was the case, we submitted prior to this application cycle, but we ran into problems with the uploading platform for our evidences and application resources. And so we ended up losing and not being approved that year. And after that, this board decided we would be ready for the next application cycle, and we immediately began preparing so that when the next cycle opened up, we would be able to submit not just on time, but early. And that is exactly what we did here. And if you look at the history, the time that we had before CSAP in November and December of 2022, we did feel like we were given a fair review process. We felt that the questions that were asked of us suggested that they had looked at our application and fairly considered it. And so now we ended up being not approved by the state board in March. And what I have simply tried to say, and several people have misread the intent of what I've said. I don't want to suggest in any way that Amy White was absolutely against us. What I have tried to get across is that the findings of fact that Amy White read into record, as well as those that Ms. Vaquero reiterated from the board minutes, indicate that no one has considered the fact that we did not stop in 2017. We appealed the proposed revocation. We hired legal counsel, and we went before the North Carolina Office of Administrative Hearings. I have now provided all of the legal documentation to provide evidence that these hearings took place. This was an OAH process that was between the Board of Directors for HCLA as well as representatives from the State Board of Education. So my concern has been, why is it that we're stopping with these findings of fact that I have asserted became moot when we appealed that and when we went through the OAH process? I have provided as evidence that the state tried to do a motion to dismiss, and the administrative law judge felt that there were legal issues that needed to be considered. And so she denied that motion to dismiss. And in the end, we had a situation where we were in a settlement mediation agreement, and I really did not start the timer today, and I'm going to try to do my best to stay on track regardless of that. But we were in a situation where we felt that the application was not fairly considered, although they did say that we did a sufficient job of proven that there was a need for the school. So we are here today because one of the last things that one of the North Carolina Charter Schools Review Board members said on record was that he didn't have confidence in this board. And so going back to last year, they said we had a dynamic board. And I am asserting today that we do have a dynamic board. Our vice chair, Dr. Rhonda Dunn, is traveling today, but she did her PhD dissertation on Teach Like a Champion and the impact that it had on teacher populations. Dr. Jim Poole will be speaking to you shortly and will share more about his background, but I can tell you that he is an amazing pediatrician and doctor who has chosen to work with at-risk populations, students who have ADHD, students who have autism, and students who have Medicaid as their insurance. And he is an excellent member of our team. He worked with us in Bertie County as well as with the parents of the many students that we served with ADHD and autism. And then our other board members, Kelly Chesson is now working with the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. And in that capacity, he goes throughout the state to train county commissioners on innovative practices that move their communities forward. And then Mr. Travis Bond is a former NFL player, went to UNC Chapel Hill. By the way, Mr. Chesson and Mr. Bond graduated from UNC Chapel Hill. Mr. Chesson was a Ronald McNair Scholar. And Mr. Bond is a graduate of UNC Chapel Hill. He is a counselor, and he's also working with students who are being trained so that they can advance with their athletic skills. And so I would like to defer now to our fellow board member, Dr. Jim Poole, because I want you to get a better sense from his voice why he's still committed to this project. Dr. Poole, I'll defer to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kashi, and to the review board, appeals board. I thank you for allowing me to speak and allowing us to speak. I'm going to try to do this in 3 minutes, which, if you know me, is a record, because I can go. My background is I grew up in Raleigh. I left for 15 years, came back. During that time, I was head of pediatrics in Stuttgart, Germany for the military. They later wanted me to run a training program for the military. I was all set to do that, and I ended up coming back to Raleigh in private practice. I've been here over 40 years. I've just recently retired. I had 7 offices. I also owned, and my company was Growing Child Pediatrics, and I also owned a child care center, and I had 5 daycare centers and after-school programs, and it was the first 5-star program in the state. And I also testified at the U.S. Senate on child care in America. I started a program called Fast Brain because I saw that so many of my patients had autism, ADHD, depression, anxiety, and it was a mess. And doctors didn't know how to train or teach it and help students other than throwing a pill at it. And I'm violently against that. Well, I grew Growing Child to 7 offices, and we were seeing 10,000 patients a month. And my program was called Fast Brain. And in true Fast Brain ADHD fashion, which I am, I misspelled brain and put 2 I's in it, and I trademarked it the next morning. And I started it, and it was just a small clinic, and then it exploded where I was seeing close to 40 patients a day. My nurse and I were coming in early and leaving late 5 days a week. And what we found was that 94% of our kids went to AB honor roll, and over 55 to 60% of our patients were Black and at-risk kids. And what that showed me is that the kids were coming in making D's and F's, ended up making A's and B's. We had a tearjerker moment nearly every day where somebody had become successful from a broken home or school just saying your self-esteem is no good because they got after them. And I saw this huge need. What I also saw was that physicians did not know how and what was going on in school. I went to a meeting, a big meeting, and one of the head people at Harvard spoke on teachers helping students. And I went up afterwards and I said, well, do you have a teacher in your office? And he said, why would I do that? I'm going, because that's, it's like, well, that's where the money is. That's where the kids are. And so I had hired a teacher, a master's level teacher, Nicole Hanley, and she would see the patients and they would come in to see her as much as me, because the whole aspect is how can we help teachers help the child? And I found that teachers didn't understand autism. They didn't understand why a child was having an emotional breakdown, why they didn't look them in the eye, why they wouldn't stop working, all the different things and I had over 3 problems with learning, some problems with autism, some problems with ADHD, and I still get feedback from that meeting. And so with that happening and the huge rise in depression and suicide that's happening across the country, I told Kashi that if you ever need help, if you ever want to start another school, you let me know. And not only will I'll be there with banners, because this is what kids need. My clinic was in North Raleigh. So I had a clinic in Knightdale, I had one in Wake Forest. So I am seeing the patients that this school would serve, and the students were not being served. They were not getting the education, they were not getting the grades, and this is where I wanted to come in. So to finish up, I saw the need. I want to help kids with learning. I want to help them understand the role of music, exercise, proper nutrition, all those, and I've done it. I mean, I did it in a clinic. I help schools. I help people, school systems start using music, taking tests and learning, and this whole aspect. And I did look into what Kashi had done before and what had happened, and I'm not going to back a sinking ship. And I'm putting my name on this. I did, I was head of the Early Child Care Committee for the Academy of Pediatrics nationally, spoke all over the country 2 weekends ago, and I was down at the Clemson, North Carolina football game, and I was in the president's box because I'm on his leadership council. And this is not pushing and patting me on the back. This is talking about my passion, and my passion is helping kids, and that's what this school would do. And I feel that the board is very strong, and I'm very supportive of what's going on. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Poole. And along the lines of what Dr. Poole has said, I want the appeal panel to consider a few other things. When we talk about low test scores, we were a school housed in Berkeley County where low test scores have been the reality for as long as test scores have been available. When I introduced our board advisor, Mrs. Mildred Bazemore, I want to remind you that she retired from North Carolina Department of Public Instruction as the chief of testing. And in that capacity, she was one of the original developers of the end of grade and the end of course test. And she also was the first in the nation to begin using computer adaptive testing. And then finally, when you look at what she did with the Extend 1 and Extend 2 testing to emphasize that the testing should be different for students with disabilities. And so when you look at me, I am an educator licensed in North Carolina and New York. I've got over 23 years of experience teaching and leading in traditional, magnet, and charter schools. I was selected for the highly competitive Building Excellent Schools Fellowship in Boston, Massachusetts, funded by the Walton Family Foundation. I also founded the very first Brooklyn Ascend charter school, which still exists today. I had to choose the board. I had to recruit and hire teachers. I had to recruit the parents and students in a community that was very anti-charter school. And then when you look at what happened in Berkeley County, I just want to emphasize things that we haven't heard as parts of the findings of fact. We made growth in reading and math in our last year of operation, 2017-2018. We had 100% of our teachers complete the North Carolina Teacher Working Condition survey, and the results were overwhelmingly positive, indicating that they felt supported and that they had the resources and professional development they needed. We were one of the first schools in the nation to implement the AVID college prep program school-wide. We had a partnership with Hillrap in Durham, and we were helping students to close the gap with their reading levels. We also had partnerships with 4-H, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, the John Maxwell team, and Kid Lead, and these things positively impacted the lives of our students. All of the children ate free each day under the community eligibility provision of the Federal Child Nutrition Program. We were a Title I school. We had a rural education grant for small schools in rural communities. We never had any problems with the federal people, not at DPI. And when they talk about financial non-compliance, including a late audit, I would like the record to reflect, as I provided you with evidence, that it was only the late audit. And I did do research and some Freedom of Information requests, and I know that there were several other charter schools that submitted their audits late that year. And I can also say that the person that we work with works with the majority of charter schools in the state. We really reached out to OCS, Dave Machado, and others came to train our board. When we fell below the number of what the state board wants for a board, it was because of local politics. People's jobs and businesses were being threatened, and we still called a meeting for the parents. And I told the parents, I know some of you are business people, homemakers, realtors, bankers, and we need board members. And those parents stepped up. We had a nationally recognized debate team. We did service learning. So when we had historic floods in Berkeley County, we actually opened a Helping Hands store where people from the local community were able to come and get clothes and books and uniforms and everything that they needed to get back on track at no cost. We have a high percentage of our students who are attending the early college, high schools in their community. And I would like to also let the record reflect that the Berkeley County Superintendent, Dr. Otis Smallwood, told me that he can tell the difference in students in his buildings who went to HCLA. And that was such an honor to me. We provided transportation to 6 counties that we served. We had teachers coming from around the world to make sure that we had highly qualified teachers. And in our last year, we had 70% of our teachers who were highly qualified, which is 10% above the statutory minimum requirement. So some of the things that were read into the findings of fact were the reason that we retained attorneys in the first place. We retained attorneys from McDougall Shanahan right here in a firm here in Raleigh. And I just want to say again, we were not closed. Our charter was assumed by Don McQueen and Three Rivers Academy, who did an awful job. The test scores plummeted to single digit numbers. And I was constantly getting complaints from people about things that he was doing against children's best interests. And we know what happened with that situation. But I just want the record to reflect that some of the things going back to 2017, we denied them then. We hired attorneys, and we went before OAH, and we ended up with a settlement agreement that took place in May of 2018 between the HCLA Board of Directors and representatives from the State Board of Education that said that we were voluntarily relinquishing our charter for Assumption to preserve the ability to keep charter school in Berkeley County. And so when we talk about closed versus assumed, I just want us to be more clear. And I want to also conclude by saying that the assumption process was a disaster, because like we're the first group to appeal in this way in North Carolina, we were also the first to have our charter assumed. And I want to remind you that the charter provision, assumption provision, was added in 2019, but it specifically said that there would be guiding policies provided by the state, and those policies never came to be until 2019, which meant as an active corporation, we were forced to turn over tens of thousands of dollars to property to Don McQueen, and we never got it back. He also took our financial records and our HR files, and these things were reported to Dave Machado. We had a meeting with him. And when we say that there are no people who were around, I would like to challenge the state board to look at the list of the current North Carolina Charter Schools Review Board and compare that to the Charter School Advisory Board. And let's make the note that Dave Machado serves on the review board, sang our praises, and he was in Ms. Piquero's role the entire time. I want to also close by saying I challenge the Office of Charter Schools to rethink the way that they're doing business so that we are meeting the needs of children. What did they do to support us? Prior to Mr. Machado, when Joe Medley was there, we had an OCS consultant who came, did site visits, did reports with recommendations. And I'm also trying to get the state board, trying to get the North Carolina Charter Schools Review Board and members of the Office of Charter Schools to understand that there is a duty that is owed to help set people up for success, as opposed to just trying to close them down with no voice from children, parents, and teachers and community members who are detrimentally impacted by these decisions. I want to thank you all for your time today, and I just want to again reiterate that we are simply saying the 2017 findings of fact are moot as a result of the 2018 Office of Administrative Hearings proceedings. You now have all of those evidences. I want to also reiterate that the North Carolina Charter Law asks that there is a special provision for those who seek to open charter schools for students who are at risk of failure. And that is exactly what we're doing. We're saying Wake County Public Schools has shown a pattern, as evidenced by our DNF chart, that they either don't know what to do or are not interested in finding out what to do to help these children grow. It has always been our position that you can grow children to proficiency, and we are excited about what is possible here in the Raleigh community. And finally, I just want to emphasize that I've listened to countless state board proceedings, and I've never heard another case where the state board, the Office of Charter Schools, the North Carolina Charter School Advisory Board, and now Charter Schools Review Board have been so involved with the hiring of a leader. As a nonprofit corporation, it is the board of directors for Heritage Collegiate Leadership Academy who are charged with hiring leadership. And I want the record to reflect that that may or may not be me. I want to only do what is needed for hundreds of children who are being underserved right now. And I ask you as the appeal panel to seriously review all of the evidences before you. And I believe that if you do that and consider what you have heard from Ms. Vaquero, from Dr. Poole, and from myself, that you will see that we are a highly qualified board. We can do this, and we're simply asking for the opportunity to do this in exchange for an application and $1,000 application fee. Thank you so much, and that concludes our presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Bazemore, for your very thorough presentation. At this time, I'd like to call on my fellow board members if they have any questions of either Ms. Vaquero or Dr. Bazemore.
I'm on. I do have a question, Mr. Blackburn, for Dr. Bazemore and perhaps Dr. Poole. If I'm understanding correctly, the current application that is the one that we're concerning ourselves with, it appeared to me in reviewing the Charter School Review Board's discussions and in reviewing the application itself, that there do remain some concerns about some of the problems that were apparent in Bertie that still have not been addressed in this current application. There were several areas, as I perceived, that were deemed insufficient by reviewers, and the review board did have some concerns about budget and staffing and professional development, several other things. So any observations about why this time this is going to work?
Ms. I'm trying to make sure I'm saying your name right. I apologize. Chemnitz?
Yes, that's it.
Thank you so much. I want you to know that we firmly believe when you look at the test scores from our last year in Berkeley County, 2017, 2018, we made growth in reading and math despite everything that we had going on. We retained highly qualified teachers despite everything that we had going on. And we are just so proud of what we have seen in those students as they've grown up. The parents, the children keep in touch with us. But if we were given a fresh start in Wake County, we want this board to know that we can do exactly what we are asserting. We're not talking about being in a community without resources the way we were in rural Berkeley County. We will take advantage of all of the plethora of resources. I've already had conversations with my alma maters at NC State and UNC Chapel Hill schools of education to inquire about student teaching programs and counselor education programs. And so, Ms. Chemnitz, we want you to know that it would have been inappropriate, we believe, to put things from Berkeley County in this application other than the replication of educational programs, character programs, and things like this, the PBIS programs that we know work because we saw it work. And what we would ask is that this board, ma'am, would look at the history, the confusion. The performance framework was in a pilot program when it started with us, with the things that people said I didn't turn in. Our last year, we turned in every single performance framework indicator on time. And I've said on record, yes, we've made some mistakes, but I want this board to understand that we believe the mistakes were not uncommon with what many new schools and new school leadership make. If you look at the fact that we can still use this corporation, that we did everything right with our vendors, we closed without owing any teacher or staff member any money. And these are all things that are consistent with leadership like mine, where I wanted to keep first things first. And so I hope that answers your question. Please let me know if I need to clarify further.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to add on that. I bank with North State Bank, and I have a very much A+ rating. I've got 2 companies that have very high net worth as companies. I've run them. So I'm a rarity, and that is a physician that's also a business person. And I've also, I've written a book called Flipping ADHD on Its Head, and I've even got a workshop. I'm retired. I'm doing a workshop online for parents because this is where it should be. I developed the program for clinical training for the PhD Pediatric Nurse Practitioner program at Duke under Ann Doran, who was chairman of that and head of the nurse practitioner group. And she chose me to be the trainer for them for their clinical education. So they ran through my office and me actually, and it got nationally recognized as the top pediatric PhD mental health program in the country. So for training staff and doing that, I can speak to that we're going to definitely have a top staff trained in those endeavors. As far as the financial, I am not privy to all the information that happened before. What I'm very excited about as a business person and an ethical person is that when she left her previous place, not a single person was owed a single dollar. And I would put that up to any company in the country that happens, especially if they've been overtaken or whatever, that they would stay with it and do that. So that, to me, from an ethical standpoint, is really tremendous. And I don't want to say, just give us a chance, and if it doesn't work, then so be it. This is going to work because I've proven that it works out of my office. I've proven and I don't mean to be melodramatic, but there isn't a week go by that I don't run into somebody at Home Depot or the grocery store that comes and gives me a big hug, whether male or female, whether they're young or old, what we did and how we helped their pathway is what has made their life. Not that I did anything, it's developing a pathway. And what Kashi has done is develop a pathway. And we all know the importance of parents, and we all know the importance of, even the redistricting for schools is because of some schools are in rich areas of the city and some aren't. Well, Bertie County, at last I checked, was not in the rich section of town, and she still was able to survive and do a great job out of that. So I am going to be on top of it from a board member standpoint. I have zero input as far as getting any income from this. I am totally retired. I will never be a paid member. I am doing all this on my own. I have donated to this cause. So I can't speak to whether we're going to be 100% successful or not. I don't think any school can do that, but I can sure say that I've got the background and I've got the business people, the CPAs and all that are going to be following this very closely. So thank you for letting me chime in, but I am very passionate. You can hear my voice. I'm very passionate about these kids. They need help.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Poole.
Thank you, Dr. Poole. We appreciate your work for the students. That's the reason that we all convene here today, because we care about the students in the state of North Carolina. So thank you for all your work that you have done. Are there any other questions? Mr. Keenan, do you have any questions? I sort of have a comment question. Dr. Bazemore, I want you to know, as a person sitting here today, that we want you to be assured that we are looking at your application based upon Wake County.
Thank you.
I was not on the board. I was not on the State Board of Education. And when the Bertie situation happened, so we are adjudicating today based upon the elements that we received from the Charter Review Board. So I just want you to be assured that that is the way that I will do this, and I feel sure that my fellow board members will do this.
Mr. Blackburn, thank you so much for that. That is all I've asked for. I do believe firmly that that is what we're going to receive today and throughout this process. And I want to say on behalf of the entire board that we are humbly grateful for the position we're in today. That's all we've asked for.
Thank you. My fellow board members, do you have anything else to add? Any other questions or any other comments? Hearing none, we will now, so we've gone through the question and answer response time. So now, so everyone knows the procedure. Thank everyone for their participation today. The panel will now deliberate and vote on a recommended decision. So we have two options. So our options are number one, to recommend to the State Board of Education that it accept the November 6 or 7 decision from the Charter Review Board to deny Heritage Wake County a charter, or number two, to recommend to the State Board of Education that overturn the decision of the Charter Review Board to deny Heritage Wake County a charter and direct that a charter be issued to Heritage Academy. So with that being said, those are our two options. Do I have a vote? Do I have a recommendation as to whether we adopt number one or number two?
Mr. Blackburn, this is Allison Shaver. If I could just correct the date there, I believe it was October 18th.
October 18th, I'm sorry. I apologize. So it's October 18th. Thank you, Ms. Schaefer. Is there a recommendation from my fellow board members?
Mr. Blackburn?
Yes, yes, Mr.
I would just like to say that because I feel that there were some concerns in the application that was resubmitted and that the Charter School Review Board has decided not to approve. And we're talking about, again, mindful of the 600 some children that eventually would be served by this school. My inclination is to accept the decision of the Charter School Review Board. And if you want me to make a motion, I'll do that. I don't know whether Reggie or Mr. Keenan has anything to say. Or you?
So Ms. Candace, I'll make the recommendation that we uphold the Charter Review decision regarding Heritage And then we will do a roll call vote. So the recommendation from me is that the State Board of Education accepts the October 18th decision from the Charter Review Board to deny Heritage Academy Wake County a charter at this time.
And by the way, Mr. Keenan has, I think he's been on mute if he's been trying to speak.
Okay. So, Lou, will you, Ms. Martin, will you call the roll?
Do you need a second to that motion, John?
That would be great, Ms. Kamnitz.
Yes, I second that motion.
Thank you. So we'll have a roll call. Ms. Martin, can you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Keenan? Mr. Keenan, you're muted. Ms. Kamnitz?
Yes?
Mr. Blackburn?
Yes.
Ms. Martin, would you check with Mr. Keenan and make sure that he is not having technical problems?
Mr. Keenan? If you could unmute.
It looks like he just got off and he's going to try to call.
Is it going to come back on?
Mr. Blackburn, I would like to let the record reflect my concern about whether Mr. Keenan was able to listen to our presentation.
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
believe he was on until just a minute ago and he just hung up, so.
He was on. He's going to call in again. He just texted, but he was on the entire time, Dr. Bazemore.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Since we're waiting for him, I would like to also notify the panel that we are seeking legal representation and we will be appealing your decision to the Office of Administrative Hearings.
Thank you, Dr. Bazemore.
You're welcome, sir.
This is Dr. Poole. I want to thank y'all for your attention to this matter. What I would like, which as a board member I've not received that I know of, and that is a list of the reasons for denial, other than just accepting what somebody else said. So whatever it is, I would like that be done. And if there's a worry about finances, how that is done when you're starting a charter school, what are the ways to approve it rather than just disapprove it? So
I'm sorry, Dr. Poole, I hate to interrupt, but we're in the middle of a vote and then we can,
Can you hear me now?
Mr. Keenan is back on.
Oh,
Mr. Blackburn,
Okay.
Mr. Keenan's on.
Thank you.
can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Dr. Keenan, or Mr. Keenan.
I don't know what happened, but I'm supporting the motion.
Thank you, sir. So the motion was unanimous. The panel's recommended decision will be reduced to writing and shared with the parties as soon as possible, but no later than the end of this week. The item will be up for discussion in the EICS committee presentations on December 6, 2023, and the final decision at the December 7, 2023 meeting of the State Board of Education, which you can attend at the Department of Education building or stream live using the YouTube link found on the state's board of the website, at which time we are happy for you to attend and you can ask any questions of us. I chair that meeting and Ms. Kamnitz joins me on that committee. So we appreciate your attention today, and please know that we take these decisions very seriously. So
Mr. Blackburn, can I just ask for clarification on which day you said we could attend in case we had questions? Was that for the
The
committee
6th.
meeting on the 6th?
of the 6th, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so that meeting's at 1:15 on the 6th, and you can, you're welcome to attend. So,
Thank you.
I would just clarify, though, that is not an opportunity to ask questions. It's a state board meeting you may listen to, but it is not an opportunity to.
I will just be listening on live so that I can provide updates as I'm seeking legal representation. Thank you.
thank you, Ms. Schaefer. Thank you, Dr. Bazemore.
You're welcome.
I ask for a motion to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Mr.
Second.
Keenan and Ms. Kemnitz seconds. So, Ms. Martin, could you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Keenan,
Okay.
Ms. Camnitz,
Yes.
Mr. Blackburn.
Yes. We stand adjourned. Thank all of you.
Thank you. Good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.